Hello everyone and welcome to our LIS 598 case study. For this seminar, we're going to look at how Hamilton Public Library strove to provide equitable access to its smallest rural branches through a system called Open Plus. So what is Open Plus? Well, it's a technology platform designed by Biblioteca that allows users to enter libraries without staff present, to support the mandate of public libraries to be fully accessible to their communities by providing service over a wider range of operating hours. This comprehensive system has been designed as a tool to enhance regular staffed library hours, not to replace the human component of information services. Models of service can be accommodated to Open Plus with various approach implementations ranging from full library access with self-service resources to limited spaces for holds pickup. The flexibility of this LIS technology extends access to resources and library spaces where human interactions can occur and create social network connections that build social capital. Hamilton Public Library provides a case study of how a large urban library provides equitable service across their system, including their rural community library locations. HPL identified that their rural locations had highly restrictive hours, especially the Freelton branch's mere 17 hours per week, which limited access to resources and spaces where groups can connect. How could they better meet the needs of the 2,500 patrons that relied on this location as their community hub? To improve access, HPL implemented Biblioteca's Open Plus technology in 2017, expanding service at their rural Freelton Library branch to 60 hours per week. The HPL extended access model has an added low-tech component, an easy-to-use video phone connection that dials into the central library's main information desk, where questions are answered and inquiries are tracked. The success of this pilot project was immense, reporting a 100% increase in library usage and a 300% increase in program attendance. The benefits have attracted the attention of other large urban libraries who seek equitable service across their locations. HBL has created a framework that can be replicated in rural communities whose fiscal budgets limit library expansions and seek an option for their staff complement to support an expansion in service hours. Human perspective. A human-centered approach to technology requires insight of how humans understand, interpret, and interact with it. If that's the case, given the multimodality of Open Plus and its emphasis on engagement and accessibility, we should consider the human factors at play, since they contribute to the system's design, implementation, adoption, and use. One of the most prominent features of Open Plus is its foundation of self-service and human autonomy. And it is the integration of usability principles that builds this foundation. But in addition to that, the system needs to engage its users to be successful, which HPL specifically addresses through participatory design. What this builds within the user base, then, is an inherent sense of intrinsic motivation that engages all vested parties in its success. According to Peters, Calvo, and Ryan, incorporating 3 basic psychological needs helps users engage with a product: autonomy, competence, relatedness. Meeting these needs instills a feeling of intrinsic reward within individuals, which in turn increases motivation, engagement, and well-being. So incorporating these needs into the design and implementation of the system will factor into how motivated visitors will be to use it. As Salzma points out, the designer should first seek to discover not only what the person wishes to achieve, but also why. Let's look more closely at human motivation. Usability informs motivation. When we consider usability concepts like learnability, efficiency, and memorability, users feel more competent when they engage with technology because they've learned and remembered how to use it and can do so on their own. With the way HPL's implemented Open Plus, we see facility access panels, monitoring devices, video phone support, and self-checkout options. So there's different modes of interaction. This means visitors don't have to learn everything all at once. With the implementation of access panels and self-checkouts, visitors have autonomy to enter the library, check out material, and finally the video call capabilities satisfy the psychological need for human relatedness. Participatory design also plays into intrinsic motivation. HPL implemented Open Plus through a participatory process by starting with a small pilot, then soliciting feedback, and finally adjusting the system as required. Keep in mind that Open Plus has multiple user groups, the library's visitors and its staff. This iterative process engaged both groups, making them feel connected and instilling a sense of belonging and ownership within a rollout of a new system. Again, the library addressed the need for relatedness, which feeds into the intrinsic motivation to adopt and use technology. What this participation then leads to is a growing sense of trust. The participatory approach engages visitors and staff, and the rationale for the inclusion and adoption of each part of the system was explained to both groups. This involvement and transparency, especially in its implementation, builds a sense of connection and trust between all parties: staff, visitors, and the technology. Again, this plays on the idea of relatedness and ultimately contributes to the intrinsic motivation of individuals to adopt and use the technology. Social perspective. The Open Plus access system builds networks that are critical for effective communication. Technology that assists the LIS industry in the promotion of their collection is essential. And if that technology also benefits the community by enhancing the delivery of equitable service and it builds social infrastructure, so much the better. CLING denotes that social informatic research is focused on developing reliable knowledge based on information technology and social change, underpinned by systematic empirical research that informs both public policy debates and professional practice. Technology advancements must acknowledge that a balanced perspective is required in their approach. Meyer emphasizes the importance of this balance in the social and the technical aspects of the socio-technical construct. Open Plus technology is designed with potential for social networking. Individual users or nodes are connected by an interdependency with a balance between social and technological that must be maintained, as technological resources bring affordances even if they are inhibited by technological constraints. A virtual shaping occurs among the participants during implementation that creates ties to each other with the establishment of nodes. It is these networks that assist in the dissemination of information and leads to community engagement and a sense of ownership in an open library environment. HPL staff transitioned to using Open Plus as the platform to connect within these networks. Correlations can be made between the study of King et al. Regarding the collaboratory as the social technical network. They state networks that bring people together and equipment are not meaningfully separable. And thus, this STIN model can be applied to Open Plus with an emphasis on the exchange between technology and humans. A social factor that was integral in the transition from a traditional service model to an open library implementation was the foundational workplace culture of HPL. The success of launching Open Plus was the social design view of Biblioteca in collaboration with HPL staff and the recognition that collaborative learning takes place in a social context. The HPL leadership team acted as coaches, making sharing concepts and knowledge the core work of their organization. The leadership communicated their rationale behind the Open Plus project and how this technology, in conjunction with video phone service, would sustain a well-supported model for their patrons. Cantoni et al. Identify that when a user has a negative experience with one component of an online tool, it can lead to misunderstandings, biases, and prejudice that impact their ability to achieve educational goals. This was addressed by a comprehensive training program completed by staff with ongoing support during the iterative design process that required prototyping. Social capital is based on relationships, social networks, and the norms of reciprocity and trustworthiness that arise from them. Social capital can exert a powerful influence on technology and in turn be shaped by technology with a positive mobilization of community assets through technology projects. Public libraries are wellsprings of social capital and generate trust, both in terms of fostering bonding or personal connections, as well as bridging type relationships with strangers. As a neutral, community-owned space, Open Plus libraries can provide a safe environment to meet neighbors and, through these, bridge relationships, build trust, in the wider community. Public libraries are not only generators of social capital, they also rate highly in terms of institutional trust. Drawing upon this goodwill enables Open Plus library technology to gain community acceptance. As Williams and Durrance note, in a social setting of relative stability and consensus, a technology may be adopted as intended, leading to a successful outcome. Finally, the library is often described as a third place, an idea developed by Oldenburg, who described these in-between informal social spaces as an alternative to home, first place, or work, second place, where community connections can spontaneously occur. Johansson suggests that open libraries make an effort to provide an inviting third place and make meeting rooms available. A paramount success of this initiative is that HPL has provided a case study in the open library concept that provides a benchmark for both large urban libraries, but in particular rural libraries that are challenged by issues of access and staff resources. Through calculated documentation of each initiated process and a dedication to the iterative approach, they have generated a wayfinding tool for this innovative construct of library service delivery. Within constrained budgets of rural municipalities, stakeholders see it as a fiscally responsible way to extend service and to not leave community infrastructure sitting idle. Open libraries create greater opportunity for a casual third place, neither work nor home, so essential in rural areas that may have limited options for public spaces. This third place may be more important than ever with the shift to online work and learning precipitated by the pandemic. Some of the documented pitfalls occurred when technological variables were given priority, as the nature of technology creates a system that produces predictable user traits in terms of decision-making and performance. Open Plus Access states that they review the interactions and outcomes of the user. However, they do not address the risk of a tiered level of service based on participants' ability to navigate the technology within the open space. Ongoing internal and external communication was required by the HPL project management team to ensure that the open libraries were designed to improve access in underserviced communities and not cut library jobs. Toronto Public Library continues to receive negative responses from their unionized staff, who see open libraries as an attempt to address the library's budget issues by increasing accessibility while reducing staff expenses. It may be more difficult to forge bridging ties or to readily connect with others when staff, who know their patrons, are not there to act as mediators. Accessing extended hours may be considered an introverted activity, not as conducive to meeting new people or fostering generalized trust in strangers and building social capital. Critical social justice perspective. A social justice perspective informs how Open Plus can be used in libraries to promote equity in communities and empower members as agents of social change. Open Plus employs the principles of participatory popular technology by shifting power dynamics in favor of users and empowering the community to harness its own knowledge creation. It gives users heightened access to participation in governance via access to information and communication tools that leads to the type of engagement necessary to promote transparency. Increased access times create opportunities for professional accessibility that leads to social mobility for marginalized groups. The technology creates a community-empowered learning society and a space for participant knowledge co-creation. Finally, Open Plus helps to close the digital divide as everyday experiences are contextualized with technology and access to computing increases. The library consulted the community, staff, and stakeholders throughout the process of implementation. Similarly, UBank's experience at the YWCA. This resulted in a technology program that empowered community members to voice criticism and play a role in design. The 78% reported increase in gate counts suggested the increased hours and autonomy opened the doors to people who previously lacked access to empowering communication and knowledge creation tools. Expanded access to internet and computing improves diversity, education, and connection for individuals, Hamilton, and the internet more broadly. Increased hours open doors to more diverse ranges of people who can visit and the length of time they can engage. HPL reported a 60% increase in computing and 16% increase in Wi-Fi usage. The digital divide remains a consideration for marginalized peoples. With no staff present to help with computers, printers, and catalogs, low-skill users may struggle. HPL responded with a combination of focus on usability, training for customers during the sign-up process, and readily available phone video support to enable diverse usership. Biblioteca acknowledges that Open Plus is a solution for providing equitable service to even the smallest rural branches. Yet the topic of homelessness is entirely absent on the company's website and within the literature discussing implementation at HPL or any of the other libraries examined. The absence of discussion on homeless inclusion in the literature creates a loud silence on the topic of homeless invisibility. Exclusion of the homeless group disproportionately affects marginalized people, since homelessness heavily impacts the elderly, BIPOC, and women. This is weighed against another social justice concern. Popular technology can be valuable for creating spaces for women that inspire and draw on community knowledge creation, that create opportunities for broader political engagement. Yet the inclusion of homeless patrons without staff presence can sadly inhibit the usability of this space due to perceived safety concerns. Accessibility issues may exist for disabled patrons who struggle with physical access, perceptual impairments, or autism. Though accessibility may be improved for those with sensory concerns or social anxiety wishing to access the space during non-peak staffless times. Gwynneth County Library used the flexible open hours enabled by Open Plus to offer programs at non-traditional times to increase learning and access, such as early morning children's programs and late evening career training for working adults. Examination of Open Plus implementation at HPL can provide a number of insights when viewed from different theoretical lenses. Because Open Plus is a platform and not a singular piece of technology, its multimodal and multi-part architecture is ideal for a user-centered, iterative, participatory approach to implementation. By taking the human perspective into account, involving users in the implementation, and soliciting feedback for improvement, library staff and visitors become engaged with the technology, feel a sense of ownership toward it, and will be more inclined to adopt and use it. Social informatics reframe thinking about usability. Hanrath and Cotman call for an improved usability through evaluation of user interactions with technology. Advancing these approaches are the unique factors of social informatics and the focus on eliminating barriers associated with the implementation of concepts regarding information and communication technology. This perspective is exemplified in the service delivery model launched by HPL in collaboration with Open Plus Access. They have eliminated the barrier of limited hours of operation and facilitated equity across their library system. A social perspective can also help answer difficult questions of resource management. When budget limitations are prompting discussions of branch closures, engage early with your local municipalities and stakeholders to explore Open Plus as a proven strategy to retain local community assets, particularly in a rural setting. Surveys show community members value both staffed hours and increased access to the library, but prefer open access to a complete loss of service. Finally, a critical social justice lens encourages libraries to employ participatory design and popular technology principles to create spaces that engage and empower users. Make sure to examine how technology, space, and programs may facilitate knowledge co-creation, social mobility, and equality. Be sure to consider how disabled and marginalized peoples may be affected by the changes to determine an implementation strategy best targeted to reduce inequalities in the community and society. Conclusion. With these recommendations, libraries can use Open Plus to creatively expand accessibility, technological integration, community connection, and equity. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this presentation and look forward to discussing this innovative technology with you. On behalf of Connie Wong Erica Braumberger, Sandra Sydor, and Victoria Stevenson, thank you for joining us. A thank you to Microsoft Office and Slides Carnival for stock images and templates.